Surviving infidelity. Updated, wife, 46 female, and I, 46 male, together since we were 13, married for 25 years, find out she had an affair when the other guy tried to end himself 5 days ago. I, 46 male, hate to admit it, but I used to read some posts here. I read them and I felt good about myself. I felt lucky, like I had everything, and that I would never encounter myself in the same situation that I used to read about. I was wrong. This is going to be very, very long. I am also a bit drunk right now, so I apologize for any errors, or if this whole thing doesn't make any sense. My story with my wife, 46 female, begins in the 70s. My parents immigrated from Brazil to the US in 1970. They met another couple that had immigrated from Brazil a few years earlier, and had just moved to Dallas. They became really close friends. 2 years after that, they opened a business together. In '73 that couple got pregnant. Around the same time my mom also got pregnant. I was born 4 days earlier than my wife. Our families didn't have any extended family in the US, so we were each other's family basically. Her mom used to babysit me while my mom worked, and since I am an only child and her sisters were born 8 years later, we were basically raised together. We were inseparable, basically joined by the hip, as my mom used to say. Our parents used to take vacations together, and when my parents took vacations, they used to take her with us. We used to have barbecues every weekend, and we always went together to church on Sundays. We were best friends. I asked her on a date when we were 13, and we discovered love together. Our relationship was actually very mature given our ages. We were best friends, so it wasn't that different. We went to the same college. I proposed to her in '94, we got married in '95. Went to the same college, and after we graduated, she started her own business, and I started helping our dads in their business. We had our first daughter in '98, soon after, we had 3 more, 20 female and 18 female. It was like a dream. We were so happy, we were living our best life. We both have very good salaries and we live extremely comfortably. Multiple properties, including some in Europe, and vacations twice a year. Our intimate life was healthy, we indulged in each other's kinks, do it normally 3 times a week. We both professed how much we love each other every single day. It was like a dream. This year, I started noticing some changes in her. She started spending more time working, she was always on her phone, we stopped having intimacy, and we started arguing all the time about things we normally would never argue. She started being cold to me. We talked about this, and she told me that this year was really stressful to her. She started acting more normal, but something was off. Even our daughters realized that, I just didn't know what it was. Last week was when I finally realized that something was very wrong. My brother-in-law's, 36 male, brother, 29 male, tried to end himself 5 days ago, which was surprising to everyone. He definitely doesn't seem like he was depressed or anything like that. My wife and I are very close to brother-in-law's family, so we were all very shocked. He wasn't able to end his own life, but it was close. Brother-in-law found him in his garage with the car on. It was a very close call, but they are expecting him to make a full recovery. My wife was very weird during this whole thing, constant mood swings, crying all the time. We were all sad, but she was more affected than she should have been. Then 3 days ago, my brother-in-law told me the truth about his brother's attempt. My wife and his brother, who is 17 years younger than me, have been having an affair for almost 11 months. Apparently, last week he tried to convince my wife to leave me for him. My wife ended their relationship and he tried to end his own life. I confronted my wife after hearing this, and to my surprise, she confessed, "Yes, I was honestly hoping that he was wrong and that his brother was lying. I am that naive." She broke down crying, that she didn't know why she did this. She called it a midlife crisis, saying that it was nothing wrong with us, that she still loved me. I ended up almost having a panic attack. I just didn't know what to do, just packed a bag with some clothes, and just stormed off. She tried to stop me, but I got in my car and drove away for almost 8 hours. I stopped when I realized that I was in freaking Memphis already. I've been staying in a hotel since that day and everyone has been blowing my phone. Apparently, my daughters now know because my wife told them, which just makes this thing even more humiliating. I talked to my oldest, just told her that I am safe and don't want to talk to anyone. My wife and her family have been calling non-stop. I have more than 100 missed calls and 1,000 plus unread messages. My other daughters are also desperate, but I just can't bring myself to talk to them. For the last 2 days, I have already drunk 2 bottles of wine and 1 bottle of whiskey. I just can't stop crying. I feel absolutely lost, absolutely lost. I know my wife for my entire life, I know her since she was barely 1 day old, we had our first picture together when she was 2 days old. Now every time I think about her, I feel like throwing up. What did I do wrong? What the hell am I supposed to do? Any advice is really appreciated, I am really lost right now. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Just some advice on the practical side: save all the messages from her, text and voice. Your lawyer will need them. Texas is not a no-fault state according to a quick Google search, so her admitting to her affair in text or voice messages will be important. Even if you decide down the road to try to reconcile, you'll want a post-nup agreement, since there is a business involved, and her admission of guilt will be helpful. Second piece of advice: stop drinking. Booze is a depressant, and will only make you feel worse and make bad decisions. Your wife has created enough bad decisions and bad feelings already. Third, get a lawyer ASAP. Even if you don't divorce, you need to know what your rights, options, and the best way to proceed legally to protect yourself are. Finally, go home. Running away isn't going to help anything. Go home and show your daughters you're okay. Tell your wife she has to go stay with her parents or siblings for a while, but don't let her force you out of your home and away from your children and family. I do live in Texas. While money is the least of my concerns right now, I need to start looking into that. I know that I need to go home, but I just can't imagine going home to see my wife or our daughters without crumbling. What the hell am I supposed to do? You do the bare minimum, you stop drinking and head back home, kick her out, or at the very least have her stay with family. You need time to decompress and fully come to terms with your life. Give it a few weeks, don't make any stupid or impulsive decisions until you're sound of mind. It's still early days, and you're clearly having a breakdown. There is zero excuse regarding your wife's affair. Midlife crisis or not, it doesn't justify her affair or actions. Don't pity her affair partner. This wasn't some child, the man's about to turn 30. He knew full well what he was getting himself into. Neither him nor your wife deserve pity, and they are both to blame for what happened. Head back home the moment you sober up. Text or call your wife ahead of time, and make sure she understands that she needs to be gone the moment you're back. You need time to process, the questions and answers can come later. Here's a list of stuff you'll need to do below. 1. STD test. 2. Consult a lawyer, even if you're still on the fence. 3. Demand a full written timeline of the affair with details, censored and uncensored version. 4. Full access to your wife's electronics and social media. 5. No contact with the other guy and his family, might include brother-in-law to avoid drama. 6. Read up on the survivinginfidelity.com healing library, and consider posting over there. 7. Implement the 180. 8. Therapy, for yourself and kids. 9. No intimacy, it'll just complicate things and it'll be used as a tactic to get you to stay. 10. Don't drink or turn to drugs in your grief, take up running or working out. Boxing is a good alternative that will deal with the anger once it sets in. Do not blame yourself. Your wife is old enough to know actions have consequences. This wasn't some one-off drunken kiss, it was a full-blown affair that nearly lasted a year. It was physical and emotional, so I expect the worst in both aspects. Do not stay for your kids, do what's best for you, even if that means walking away. I, 46 male, hate to admit it, but I used to read some posts here. I read them and I felt good about myself. I felt lucky, like I had everything, and that I would never encounter myself in the same situation that I used to read about. I was wrong. LOL, me too bro. Made me feel great. Guess what, we both were wrong, haha. It just sucks. I never expected to be that guy, feels so stereotypical. I felt that what we had was unique. Who can say that he was married to someone that he knows since he was born and started dating at 13? My mom took me to meet her for the first time when she was hours old, Jesus Christ. And now for the update. Hi everyone, a lot happened during these last few days. I apologize for my writing on this one, I am a bit drunk and my brain is thinking this in Portuguese, and writing in English, so it's probably going to be a mess. I decided to sober up and go back home on the 23rd, I was not in a good mental state to drive, so I ended up hiring someone to drive me back to Dallas. I avoided everyone when I arrived there, I just wanted to see my daughters and my dogs. I asked my youngest to warn my wife that I didn't want to see her, and she went to stay with her parents. For sake of understanding, I will name my daughters. The oldest is Sarah, the twins are Amanda and Amelia, and my youngest is Emily. My daughters were basically my shadows growing up. I'm extremely close to the twins and Emily. Sarah is a different story. We were very close when she was a kid. Once she was around 17 to 18, she started acting out and put a lot of distance between us. Since then, she kept getting closer and closer with her mother and more distant from me. I've tried several times to bond with her, but she always kept me at arm's length. When I got home, I told my daughters that I had arrived and went to see my dogs. They arrived shortly after. They were all very emotional. We talked for hours. I admit that I cried a bit, a lot. We hugged together. I received tons of kisses. They were very surprised at how their mother could do something like that to me. They said that it changed how they viewed their mother. It went on and on, with them basically talking about their mother in a very unpleasant way. It was a bit shocking, to be honest. I felt extremely uncomfortable hearing them saying that stuff about her. In normal circumstances, I would never allow them to speak about her in that way. I was very surprised at how vocal they were, especially Sarah. Sarah adored her mother, they were very close, and even though she saw the mess I was, her reaction felt strange. We ordered dinner, had a nice meal together, laughed a bit. I decided to drink a bit to numb myself before bed, drank a little too much, and went to sleep. Sarah woke me up. She told me that she was having trouble sleeping and asked me if she could sleep with me that night. I was very surprised. She was a very sick kid growing up. She was diagnosed with leukemia when she was barely 3, and she had problems sleeping on her own until she was almost 8. The only way she could fall asleep was with her head on my chest. She got on the bed, snuggled with me, her head on my chest just like when she was a kid. I was almost sleeping again when she began crying. She was basically having a panic attack, mumbling words I just couldn't understand in Portuguese. We have this habit in the family. My parents, when they were really excited or emotional, started speaking Portuguese out of nowhere. My daughters and I inherited that as well. She kept saying that it was all her fault, that she was sorry for doing that to me. Eventually, the others woke up and I was able to calm down Sarah. Eventually they started speaking. It was all in Portuguese, so I will try to summarize the whole thing. Apparently, 7 months ago, Amelia went back home earlier one day and caught my wife and brother-in-law's brother in the act. My wife begged her to not tell anyone, which obviously meant that Amelia told Amanda, and that Amanda told Emily, which meant that Emily told Sarah. They just can't keep a secret between themselves. Sarah confronted my wife and she gave all sorts of excuses. In the end, she promised Sarah that she would stop and begged her to not tell me. Sarah was able to convince the rest of the girls to not tell me. To make things even worse, my wife is not even a little smart. 2 months after Amelia found her in our house, Emily caught them in my wife's car. Cue the same thing, my wife begging our girls to not tell me, that she was just weak, that she still loved me and couldn't afford to lose me. Sarah was able to convince the rest of the girls to not tell me, again. They were all crying and hugging me at that point. Sarah was hugging me so tightly that I honestly thought my ribs would break at any moment. Then it started making sense. My parents were quite wealthy, my wife's parents were not. When it came to parenting our kids, I always spoiled them a bit too much. It was one of the biggest reasons that my wife and I used to argue about. We eventually agreed that spoiling them too much would not be wise. But this year was different. My wife went against everything we had discussed before. In June, she gave Sarah a new car without even discussing things with me, a Model S, not a cheap one. 2 months ago, my wife bought an apartment in Boston for the twins, because apparently, living in the dorm was really stressful. Again, she didn't discuss this with me. The issue was not the money. My wife and I are very successful. But out of nowhere, she started giving them gifts. These two are the biggest examples. It caused some fights between us, but her excuse was always the same. 2020 was being really hard on them. I asked them point blank if the reason their mother was giving them those gifts was to keep them quiet. They didn't answer. They just said that they didn't want to hurt me. I admit that at that point I lost my temper. I just told them in not a very nice way to get the hell out of the house. I packed my things, got my dogs, and drove to Marshall. I own a ranch outside the city. It's a miracle that I didn't end up dead, considering that I was definitely not even a little sober. Against the odds, I arrived safely there. For the first time in 46 years, I almost spent Christmas alone. But there he was, my new best friend. A bottle of Blue Label. We haven't met before, but I got to say, we actually bonded pretty well through the holidays. I was a mess. I cried more in the next 5 days than I had cried before in my entire life. It was definitely not pretty. The only thing that kept me sane was my dogs. I honestly didn't know what to do. I kept asking myself, what did I wanted to do at that point? And the only thing that crossed my mind was visiting my parents. My mom died in 2013, she was hit by a drunk driver and didn't survive the accident. My dad died only 4 months after that. He lost his battle to lung cancer after treatment for almost 4 years. My mom wanted to be buried in the city she was born in, Brazil, and my dad wanted the same, so I buried them there. It was hell. I was very attached to my parents and I didn't have a place to speak with them. I have Brazilian citizenship since my parents were born there, got a COVID test, which followed the recent trend in my life and came back negative, bought a ticket and 13 hours later I arrived in Brazil. 8 hours after that, I arrived in the city where my parents are buried, small city, less than 20,000 inhabitants. I spent New Year's Eve, drinking scotch with my parents. I could feel my dad's disappointment from beyond his grave, surprisingly creepy. I miss him. That's where I am so far. My phone was blowing up with calls and text messages from everyone, so I just decided to not recharge it anymore. Not sure how I'm going to proceed. I'm just sinking in my own misery at this point, living day by day. Thanks to everyone who reached out to me, a special thanks to user Belezazinho1. Happy New Year. Now for some closing comments. After finding out all that you did from your children, it makes your path pretty clear. Hire a lawyer, the meanest one with the best reputation for brutal tactics, file and serve your soon-to-be ex-wife. Kick her out of your house. She cheated, she leaves. Make sure that infidelity is the reason for the divorce. Go scorched earth on her, tell your family, her family, and your friends about the affair. When people ask questions, tell the truth. Never cover up for a cheater. Tell your children that you love them, but are devastated by the betrayal of not telling you about the affair. Tell them how disappointed you are, that they could be bribed to keep their mouths shut. Let them know not to contact you, that you will contact them when you are ready. Get yourself into therapy. You need to learn how to cope with the betrayal, without alcohol. You would be better served by joining a gym, working out, eating right, and getting proper rest. Get some help, stay strong, you can get through this. Understand that this was not your fault, this is all on your wife. She is the one who destroyed your marriage and your family, not you. What scorched earth man, are you sure you read his post? Basically, all his family knew about the wife's affair with brother-in-law's brother, except for him. Bro, you are allowed to be miserable for some time, but then you can start eating better and exercising. Show your ex how you are much better than anyone she will ever get. You got this, man. First, stop drinking. Go home, speak to a divorce attorney and start the divorce process, get some therapy, and get tested for STDs. I would speak to your daughters and let them know that you will always love them, but that their betrayal of you by not letting you know, and hiding their mother's affair in exchange for gifts, has hurt you almost as much as your soon-to-be ex-wife's actions. They are all adults, and if they loved you as much as they proclaim, they should have told you. Tell them you need space and time away from all of them, and that they should not contact you until you are ready to speak with them. Go no contact with your soon-to-be ex-wife, and only talk to her through your attorney. She obviously only likes your lifestyle right now. She was caught multiple times by her own kids and that didn't snap her out of her affair. I don't think considering reconciliation would be good for you in this situation. Lean on your friends and other family, just not hers. You can and will survive this, but you need to focus on yourself only right now. Talk to a good attorney and protect yourself. I have a few friends and coworkers, but I don't have family left. My family was her family. I'm considering talking to an attorney to change my will. And that's it for this video, guys. If you have thoughts to share, leave a comment below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you like this content. I'll catch you in the next one. Good day, everyone.